Welcome everyone to the Adversity to Advantage podcast. Today we have got Katie Phillips on the other end of the line. Welcome to the show.
Hello.
So nice to have you this early in the morning. So Katie is a coach. She's also the founder of the School of Self-Love and an author of the book, which I've not yet read, but looks amazing. The author of The Self-Love Affair, A Woman's Guide to a Daring and Mighty Life, which I hear can also apply to men. Me and Katie met a couple months ago, I think, when she was hosting and interviewing me for an interview called Head Talks around mental health. And we connected, like you cried, I cried. It was a beautiful moment. We were like, we've got to stay in touch. And now we finally got this conversation going.
Yeah, it's awesome. I love that. Well, the reason we connected so quickly is because, well, it was an interview about mental health. But you're telling your story, you were being real and vulnerable. And as soon as someone's real and vulnerable, it's instant connection, isn't it? Absolutely. There's no bullshit, right? It's just instant.
Absolutely. There's something magical about it. And then we talked later and I was like, Katie, I know a little bit of your story. You know everything of mine. Yeah. So we need to balance this out. I need to make you a little bit uncomfortable. No, don't worry. This is a safe place.
see if you can get me to cry.
Fingers crossed. No, let's just connect. So tell our listeners a little bit about you. What do you do? What are you passionate about at the moment?
Oh, gosh. Well, I think I got to say I'm most passionate about my work. I totally live and breathe it because like what I'm personally interested in is overcoming our humanness. I love that idea of overcoming the mental chit chat, the emotional pain, the pieces that we're not so great at dealing with in life. That's our humanness. And because I really believe we have a spiritual self, and that part of us is always desperately trying to guide us, is our truth, it's our wisdom, has all of our answers. It's a place of pure love and perfection. And we have to learn how to tap into that and use that and be that. Remember who we truly are, and that requires us to overcome our humanness. And I have been for a long time on a personal path to that. Like I really am quite the truth seeker, and I love anything personal growth. I'm always reading it, listening to podcasts, watching interviews. It is my own happy place. I really feel alive doing that for myself. So the fact that I can just do all that and then it happens to be my work as well, like, hello.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Would you say that like I think that our purpose in life is growth, regardless of what medium it comes in, what work we do, but it's literally growth. Yeah.
I completely agree. Like that whenever anybody says, what's our purpose is to, in my language, is to more deeply know and love ourselves. To more deeply know and love yourself requires growth.
But what's so liberating is that when I'm faced with challenges now, the challenges of business, loneliness, dating, kids, like all of that normal life sort of stuff that comes and whacks me in the face every once in a while, having the perspective quite quickly to be able to say, I wonder what this is teaching me. I wonder how I might be able to grow from this. And there was I just had this, you were talking about fresh stuff that's going on for you at the moment. And I had just something fresh last night where my daughter, who's 12, just had a bit of a moment, a bit of a meltdown. She may have punched a wall and had an emotional kind of discussion. I know, right? So I had to challenge, Brené Brown says that often we do the at least thing because we want to make people feel better. So the difference between empathy and sympathy, and I was so tempted. I had this inner dialogue to say, well, at least this is good, or at least you're good at this. And I just shut up and I just tried to listen and just tried to support her through her stuff. And then I did say, now you have no idea what this is teaching you, but it must be teaching you something. And the ability to like pass that message on to my young daughter, right? I'm like, nobody did that for me. God. It's just like head start stuff.
To me, that is like the epitome of conscious parenting, that's amazing. But you've had to learn that. I've had to learn that. I have to say, my son is 11. I have similar conversations with him, and I could say I wish my parents were able to have those conversations with me.
Sure.
I just don't think most of society was quite there yet. Like, we're living in a pretty special age now where this knowledge and understanding is more available.
And we can learn from so many spiritual leaders or coaches or people.
I mean, you just go on Instagram and there's teachings left, right, and center. You know, it's like, oh, right, that's really interesting. They didn't have access to that.
No.
And actually, a lot of what we now very openly talk about, I mean, talking about the vulnerability of connection when we first met, speaking publicly and openly about mental health. I mean, if my mum had have been able to speak openly without fear of her mental health challenges, and she was suffering clinical depression and anxiety, which actually ended up having her take her own life. And I would imagine we're going to come to that in this conversation some more. But I know her story, and I know in the very beginning when she tried to take her own life, and I was quite newly born. I was, less than 1 year old.
Okay.
The family covered it up because, God forbid, anybody knew she was struggling with what we're pretty sure was postnatal depression at that time, because she'd be taken, her kids might be taken away. There was that fear because mental health wasn't understood. It certainly wasn't spoken about. It was always swept under the carpet. And that's not helpful, is it?
Well, no, and I think this is part of when we both cried was me talking about parenting and postnatal depression and not wanting to live and not having gone down that path, but being faced with that choice. And there's so much shame as a parent to not be, gloriously accepting all the challenges of the transition, or not having this natural maternal instinct to do all the right things that you see in movies and, love, there's something really private and shameful that we don't talk about that experience. And I was struck with just the knowledge of your story. And I know you were an okay, I'm going to jump ahead because I know stuff and I'm just like, ooh, okay. So obviously the theme is adversity, as we know. And I know that specific experience has had a major impact on your life. And I do want to go there. But I also want to just get a bit of context to what that was like, growing up. You said parents weren't doing as much conscious parenting, but do you think that your parents or the education system kind of gave you the resilience or set you up for the adversity you would soon face as a young girl and an adult?
Well, okay, so that's a really good question. And what I'm realizing as you say that is that as much as, where do I begin with this? I mean, so my parents did their best.
Of course,
and I can
with what
say
they knew.
Absolutely, they both loved me deeply. And they did their best, their own way of showing their love. And I definitely did feel loved. So I actually think I have an advantage right there because
Absolutely.
I work with plenty of clients that didn't even have that experience, right? So I'm a step ahead because I felt loved. I knew they loved me. They were doing their best. And I know my mum in particular was doing her best to be as conscious a parent as possible. I mean, I remember specific conversations like her sitting me down one day when I would have been about the age of my son now, 10 or 11, and telling me the importance of really knowing and loving my body. And I remember her explaining to me the importance of a woman feeling connected to her body, looking at her body, touching her body, understanding her body, and respecting and taking care of it. And that stuck with me forever. And I've always had an excellent relationship with my body. And I know it's because we had that conversation. Now, I'm sure Mum was able to talk to me about that because her life experience, something would have gone on for her that had her realize the importance of this conversation, But there were things that she wasn't aware of and was in her own pain about, stuff that she hadn't healed and wasn't able to teach me. I know she struggled a lot with codependency, for example, and because that part of her wasn't healed, I learned that as a pattern of behavior, and I've taken that into my adult life, and that's been a real pain point for me. And yet an opportunity, something to overcome and heal and come out the other side of with growth, as you were talking about before.
But it's annoying how annoying and allows us to grow, right? How the main thing we need to learn, we often repeat consistently. So how did that codependency idea or what you'd learned from an early stage impact you in life? How did it show up?
Well, it came out, I mean, in the early days when I was a little girl, it was wanting to be perfect and good and get the great grades and be super tidy. And I was the one that had the clean bedroom, and my sock drawer was super organized and color-coded. I mean, I was like almost OCD level good girl.
Yeah.
Because I knew that with mum and dad, and again, there's zero blame here. I have so much love and compassion for them both. They had their own emotional pieces going on. There was stuff in life they weren't able to deal with. And on a very intuitive level, and as little girls and boys, you know, we feel more than we understand. And I felt that if everything wasn't going right around us in the home, they might come undone. And my fear, which I really internalized it as a feeling, was mum and dad would disappear if I wasn't perfect. And that was dad would go off to another family, which ended up happening, and mum would take her own life. I somehow intuited that they would go and I would be left alone to fend for myself.
So survival.
If I wasn't a good girl, if I rocked the apple cart. So I learned to be good. And that's the basis of codependency, isn't it? I need you to be okay so that I feel okay. So I needed mum and dad to be stable and okay and everything was all right so that I felt safe and okay in the world.
So you end up pleasing people or giving away your power.
Pleasing. Yeah, you learn pleasing. I mean, it's like my signature, most popular program now is Love Yourself Free from People Pleasing because that's what I had to learn. And bless my mum and bless my dad. They were both codependent. They didn't know. It wasn't something that was...
It's not malicious. It's just it's a product of their background and their generations before them.
Yeah.
Sure.
No, I took that behavior into my career. You know, I was the perfect corporate girl.
Were you?
Such a good girl in the corporate world. And I worked hard. I was never paid properly for what I did and the hours I worked. I was totally dependable and reliable. I would never let anybody down. God forbid, I couldn't bear someone being let down because, again, how they feel affected how I felt. Same in relationship. I didn't know how to be in relationship if I wasn't making sure he was always okay and was I good enough? Was I perfect enough? Was I, and that's an exhausting place to be.
Yeah, so what's the downside? Because people listening might be like, what's wrong with that? You did well in your career, you had relationships, what's wrong with it?
Well, in terms of an intimate relationship, not only is it exhausting for me, the people pleaser, it's exhausting for them too because they know that they're responsible for my happiness.
Ooh.
Whether they get it or just feel it, there's this sense of, if I'm not okay, she's not going to be okay. And it's a lot of pressure, there's a lot of pressure being put on backwards and forwards. But the thing is, if you're always focused externally, if you're focused on what somebody else or something else needs, the energy is outpouring constantly. So you're left this kind of withered shell of a person. You're not your fullest, most vibrant, loving self. You can't be your best self for the people that you love. So they're not getting the best of you. They're getting like a dumbed down, withered, tired, probably martyred version of you. Like I was such a martyr. It was like, it's all right for you. Yeah. You go off and do that. I'll bear the load for me. No one wants to be around that. That's a horrible victim energy to be around.
It's very stuck as well, and it's not growing. It's not growth mindset. It's very fixed mindset. It's very fear-based, and ultimately can lead to things like burnout, mental health issues, like all sorts of things, right, from not living your truth.
Yeah.
All of it.
Yeah. So really, I think, it is that analogy. I'm sure you've heard it before. The idea, when you're on an airplane and they say, put your mask on first before putting the oxygen mask on the child or the elderly person, because you can't put the mask on them if you can't breathe.
Yeah.
It's just that analogy. So self-love, the day has gone where people thought that self-love was egotistical and selfish. It's the exact opposite. And I can see now that I've more or less healed my codependent patterns of behavior, because it's my biggest piece, I know that there are like little tendrils of it that still try and cling onto my life.
Go, hey, I'm over here. Yeah.
Yeah. But as I've come to heal that, my relationships are so authentic. People know they're getting the real me. Like I'm not pretending. If I can do something, yes. If I can't, it's a no.
How do you feel?
I'm inspired. I'm healthy. I'm happy.
So you're giving from that full place. How does it feel if somebody's disappointed or doesn't like what you're saying?
It's never very nice, is it? Except that this is a journey, by the way. So as you strengthen your self-knowing, your self-awareness, your self-love, when someone else isn't okay, you have that solid foundation to know that even though they're not okay, I'm okay. And then I can actually have the availability for more compassion and empathy and understanding for where they're at without making it about me. Yeah. Like I can't make someone else feel anything. You can't make somebody else feel anything. That's their responsibility, isn't it? Someone else's feelings is their responsibility.
Took me two decades to learn that.
I might do or say something that, of course, will affect them, but how they, and we were saying this before we came on the call, how they choose to react or respond to what I do or say, and vice versa, that's the responsibility of the receiver.
So I know that for me, it took about 2 decades and 13 years of being in a relationship to figure that shit out, right? So I'm curious about 2 things. One is, did you have a catalyst moment or a rock bottom moment that helped you kind of go, I've got to sort something out and begin the tricky journey of moving forward to get to this place? Let's go there first.
Okay. Well, you could say, talking about reacting and responding to life, that choice, I would say as a people pleaser, codependent, I reacted to life
all the time,
for as long as I can remember.
Sure.
When Mum did succeed in taking her life, I was 22, and I totally reacted. My reaction to life went up a whole other level, mostly because I was scared. I mean, we react when we're scared. Because we get that sort of fight or flight response is triggered, isn't it? And it's something happens that is scary. It was scary the day I found out Mum died. And you can either feel it, which is horrible, or kind of lash out to it, which is like the protective barrier. Yeah. You're going to protect yourself, or you're going to run away from it, right?
Sure. What did you do?
I protected myself.
Okay. So what does that look? What did that look like? What did that feel like?
I felt like a victim to the world. I felt so unsafe. I literally felt like life was not there for me. You know, I felt like
it slapped you in the face.
I felt completely unlucky, and I felt like I had to protect myself all the time. I had to have my guard up.
Sure.
Because my conditioning, my programming, we'd experienced, you can imagine when you've got someone that's going to kill herself, there's going to be a catalogue of things leading up to that. So I had a back catalogue of experiences where I was already scared. I was already,
working on fight or flight adrenaline. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't have that sort of safe place where I just knew I was okay. I just knew everything was going to be okay. I didn't. So when she died, it was just like the absolute, it was this sort of biblical message. You see, Katie, you're really not okay. Life is a scary place. You're not supported. You need to watch out, be alert. You could get hurt. Protect
There's danger
yourself.
everywhere.
Take care. Yeah. And so I was always I was pushing back all the time in relationships, friendships. I was pushing back. I was making sure I was okay to be safe, not to be loved. Does that make sense? The difference between, like, we were talking about healing, people pleasing. I'm going to make sure I'm okay, so that I'm filled up and full of love, so that I can take care of the people I love most in a
healthy, sustainable way.
Right. I was in a protective cage. I remember, actually, I had this feeling. I remember my boyfriend at the time picking me up. I just had this news and I was just in pieces.
Of course.
And I remember we were driving through the town and I looked out the window and I had this feeling like I was in this bubble. And I was looking out and I was the world was carrying on as normal. And I had this bubble And I was inside the bubble looking out going,
how is the world
holy
still
shit,
turning?
how is the world still spinning right now?
Yeah.
Like, there's that, which I'm sure anybody that gets the news of, you know, some terrible grief has a similar experience, actually. I do know, though, that in that moment, there was something happened where I made meaning of the experience, and that was I remain in the bubble now. And I became a victim to that.
Yeah.
So I became a victim to the experience, and I behaved in life as a victim for a good decade thereafter.
Whoa.
So you could say, like, I had good reason to,
sure.
But again, I hadn't been taught how to respond to life. I'd only been taught how to react because I was scared. I didn't feel safe. I didn't trust the world. I didn't trust people.
And I bet you told a story that allowed people to reinforce that message back to you,
totally.
right?
I wore the T-shirt, my mum killed herself, you know, basically. And of course, people respond well to that story.
Yeah, of course. Yes.
You know, they sort of collaborate.
Yes. So it reinforces the idea that you're a victim, that it wasn't your fault, that there's nothing you can do about it. And you stay in this sludge, so to speak, for a full decade, acting out in relationships, protecting from intimacy, I would imagine.
Totally.
Not putting yourself out there to any kind of vulnerable position.
No, that's right. And then I suppose, it was a good decade. And in that decade, it was like this sort of snowball of how that affected my intimate relationships and how I shut down and protected myself and just wasn't able to be intimate, wasn't able to respond to normal push-pull of a relationship. I was always in reaction. It was always a drama. You know, it was always poor me because I felt fundamentally unsafe.
Sure.
And so that led to me being a single parent because, you know, I was a bit of I attracted codependent men as well, by the way.
Yeah, so that's what I was wondering.
Like, you know, you
just react off of each other. Absolutely. Yeah.
So there was just drama, relationship. And then I just ended up as a single parent with my little boy in a relationship that was just off the scale unhealthy. The codependent levels were through the roof, and it was fairly mentally and emotionally abusive. And that was ending, which is no bad thing.
Right.
But the day that ended,
still hard. Yeah.
That was my rock bottom because I could survive life. You can imagine I was a survivor. I was good at surviving life. I had my wall up and I powered through.
Yeah.
But I didn't know, you know, this is the thing with, you asked me before, what's so bad about giving to other people all the time? You know, why is it so terrible to be of service to others? It's not. The problem is when you're only focused outside of yourself, you don't know who you are. The focus is never on you to know who you are. So when the shit hits the fan, as it did for me that day, and I was rock bottom, it wasn't just a relationship over. It was I had nothing because I had never, at the age of, what was I then? I was probably about 35. I had never cultivated a foundational sense of self to fall back on, to like fall into the loving arms of and trust and be okay and know that fundamentally I'm okay. Okay, this relationship didn't work, but I got me. I'm okay. I'm here. It was like I fell into this abyss and it felt like I had nothing. And I kind of realized that I didn't want to do life like that anymore. And it just, I mean, this day looked like me taking Valium, locking myself in the bedroom in the middle of the day, pulling the blinds. My son was at nursery and thinking, I just want it all to be over. And then realizing I was doing exactly what my mum did, because when my mum took her own life, she had done exactly that. She'd gone into her bedroom in the middle of the day, closed the blinds, she'd overdosed, and her relationship had just ended.
Oh my!
As well, it was like
and
I was laying in that bed, bawling my eyes out, snot everywhere.
Yeah.
And I realized, holy shit, I have become mum, and I have tried so hard all these years to not be like mum. Love mum, love her deeply, and I didn't want to end up suicidal, depressed, single. Like I didn't want to end up like that. I didn't want to recreate that. And yet just through pushing back on it, I still managed to recreate it, because we create what we know subconsciously, unconsciously. And when I realized, oh my God, I'm a puppet to my conditioning, and I didn't even know that language. I just knew I had copied her, and I had to understand how that could happen. And I realized if I learned how to copy her in such minute detail, something in me just came alive and said, well, there must be a way of learning in minute detail a different way to get a different outcome. It was just like this intuition. And that was the day I just said, okay, enough. I don't know what to do. I didn't know what to do except to get out of bed and go wash my face, and then go and get my son from nursery. I had zero clue how I was going to, I didn't know. But I learned life guides you when you make a decision.
So something had switched internally. And then you just did the next right thing and the next right thing. Yeah. And it sort of set you on this path.
Yeah, and I think when you say something switched internally, I would call that, this is the way I speak with clients, it's like it's the fire in your belly. Like something lights up, and only you can create that. No coach can make you have that experience.
That's true.
Nothing can give you the fire in your belly that wakes something up. And I believe it's your spirit. It's your spirit waking up going, come on, girl. This is not how you do life. This is not you. It's not the truth of you. This is not your loving nature. Living in fear, that's not what you're meant for.
Yeah.
You're meant for more. And I that switched on. And so then life can step in and guide us. And I was guided to a meditation. I was guided to a counselor, then to a coach, and
so began the internal work. The internal work on yourself in order to understand the patterns that you'd been playing and connected to your mom's experience that led to yours. And then you just start putting those small steps in place. Yeah. Yeah. Because I'm always curious about the messy middle, I call it. Because we have these rock bottoms, and then you're doing these amazing things, right? And that's the story people often hear is like, it was hard and now it's great, yay, And I'm like, how the fuck did you get there, because I guess that's the bit that I wanted to know. But I think I wouldn't have had the capability to imagine where I'm at today when I was in my rock bottom moments, You can't imagine, like I imagine you couldn't have conceived of the fact that you would be a coach and doing the school of self-love and be the author of a book like this and talking about conscious parenting and be married to an amazing person and like all this stuff, right? So you can't even, sometimes people try and vision board from that place. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but it's like, sometimes we limit ourselves, I think, when we think, well, the next thing I could probably do is maybe get a more fulfilling job. Great, But there's something about learning to listen or follow that guide. Like, what was that journey like? How did you learn? Yeah. Was it just?
You're so bang on. I mean, if someone had said to me, I'd be doing this. Back then.
You'd be like, you're crazy. I don't even know what you're talking about. Yeah, exactly.
I was
self-love. What are you talking about?
The whole personal development world then. I mean, you asked me in the beginning, what's your passion? It is my passion now. It came to be my passion. It saved my life first. Right. And then it has become my passion. I have got so excited about this concept that you can change your life. Like your life actually is something that you are in charge of. You can be in charge of your mind. You can be in charge of how you feel. You can be in charge of your results. So that was so exciting to me that I wanted to keep learning more and then showing other people how. But that day on that floor, that rock bottom moment, I would have just laughed at you.
So
I probably would have smacked you.
Yeah, you'd be like, heresy, what are you talking about?
Cynical.
Yeah.
But the messy middle, the messy middle went on and on and on and on.
That's what I mean. It's like this, right?
Yeah, and I'm not, sometimes I still feel like I'm in the messy middle because every time I'm ready to grow in some way and go to my next level in some way, it's like I've forgotten everything I've learned and I'm starting over again.
Or the challenge is now bigger. The challenge is different or coming from different angles, and you've obviously got the skill to tackle it. But we don't get the same lesson over and over. Once you've cracked it, you get the next one.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's always going to be a messy middle, isn't there? Because there's the awareness of the change you want to create, and the space between that awareness and the achieving of the change. And so there's going to be the messy middle in between. But from that rock bottom to here, oh my God, the messy middle. I mean, it really was, for me personally, the total game changer was learning how to listen to the voice inside and trusting it. And that was a process. Really, I mean, to me, to realize that I had a spiritual nature, that was the truth of me. When I really hooked into that, I knew it like I knew it, like it was so real and so true. And when I found it, it was like, I've always known this, but I didn't
have the tools.
Like I've always known, but I just, like I was never guided there. I was taught to live as a human, not as a spiritual being having a human experience. As a quite a subtle,
big,
actually, not so subtle.
Yeah, no,
pretty big.
That's kind of huge. It's kind of huge. So do you think, and I'm always curious about this, that you needed the adversity, and it sounds awful to say because your mum ended her life, but the 10 years after that of victimhood, of self-torture, of all that stuff to make you into the person that you are today, who is capable of the impact that you have?
Yeah, I do. And I think that those of us that really are put on this planet to teach concepts like this and lead by example, we have to. And I'm not going to lie, there are times where I've literally sworn at God and, I'd be like, why me? Why did I have to go through that? Why did it have to be so painful? Why does it sometimes continue to be so painful? How have I not healed X, Y, Z yet? Why? And I know why, because every time I'm speaking to an audience or coaching a client privately on retreat or whatever, and whatever comes up, I'm like, that's why. Because they're going through exactly the same thing, or something the feelings and the growth that's being called of them is exactly the same. And often I'm working with people that, no, they haven't lost a parent to suicide.
Sure.
But they couldn't trust me. I couldn't help them to get the change they wanted to get if I hadn't really been down and dirty in the mud.
Yeah.
With the mud under my fingernails,
trained
doing
yourself,
the work,
figuring it out. Yeah. Absolutely.
But as a little adage to that, I think we do learn a lot through pain and adversity. And then I really believe it is possible to reach a point in your life where you can choose to start learning through love. And I see that in my relationship now. So I had, as I said, a lot of relationships that were pretty full of drama. And I learned through pain then. And I've reached a place on the back of being single for 8 or 9 years, by the way, before I met James, and we were married last year. I can learn in this relationship through love. So yes, we challenge each other, and we can have conversations, and we come at each other from a place of complete trust and love.
That's a really amazing thing to echo, is that yes, we're constantly learning and life is about growth, but it's what is the medium for that? And for a period of time, it is challenge, it's adversity, it's pain, it's all of those things. And then if we continue on that road, it can just come through different things. Our children, our partners, just life stuff, and we're choosing how to respond. But that's really beautiful, actually, just to think of. But do you think that's just, it's coming from love, or we're choosing to respond to things differently, and we're attracting different things into our life?
I'm coming from a very healed place, and so is he. You just keep
totally
creating,
right?
Like what's not healed just keeps getting created.
You just trigger each other otherwise, don't you, in relationship?
And there's stuff within me and around intimacy that is still healing, and the same for him. And we both know that. And so we're on the same page with supporting each other, with like the decision, the intention to have a really intimate relationship, which requires total vulnerability, like strip bare vulnerability and honesty. because we have decided that. And when we first met, it must have been like our fourth date where we both said we want a relationship where we jointly redefine relationship, where we actually choose together, like, what is a relationship and what's our relationship going to be and what's that going to look like? Not what was modeled, not what other people do, not what you think maybe society expects. Like, what do we want for our relationship? And that decision is coming from a really abundant, loving place, and we're on the same page. And so we're supporting each other. We're not fighting and pushing against each other. Not that sometimes our shit doesn't come up, and we do we recoil into our fear place.
Of course.
But,
but you practice self-awareness, and you're able to circle back and come at it from a different perspective because your values are aligned and your purpose for the relationship is aligned. So you can have healthy conversations. That's a beautiful transition.
It's huge.
Yeah, from what I'm hearing you went through before.
Oh, God, I would have been a nightmare to be in a relationship with before. Nightmare. I mean, I can whinge about the guys I was with, but I was a nightmare. I own that.
Yeah, that's amazing to be able to own that. Before we started recording, we were talking about just the life stuff, the regular challenges. So yes, you're healed and you've processed lots of stuff and you practice self-awareness. What challenges show up now? And what are the things that you do or you try to do regularly to try and maintain, your mental health or anything like that? So what shows up now? What do you do?
I mean, I just think this conversation about reacting and responding to life is huge. It's like, for me personally, because I was so practiced, it was such a habit of behavior to be the victim in life.
You don't even realize you're doing it, right?
Sorry, say again.
You don't even realize you're doing it. It's just habit.
It's such you're just wearing these blinkers. You don't know that you're behaving the way you're behaving. You've always behaved that way, and that's what was modeled to you as well. So, overcoming that way of doing life has been huge for me. So really it is, when I say a daily intention, it's not like I wake every day and say, today I choose to respond to life, not react. Today I choose to love myself. And it was in the beginning. So talking about the messy middle.
Yes.
The messy middle, that was a daily affirmation.
Yes.
But I don't have to affirm it today because it's again, I live in this new blinkered world, and my new blinkered world is a woman who totally just, I love myself. I don't doubt that. I mean, that's really, I got that, I'm totally there for me. I trust life. Sometimes I wobble on that. That's something I'm still strengthening. And that is a daily affirmation is, life is designed to support me. Mm-hmm. I see evidence of it every single freaking day, by the way. And I'm still strengthening that because for most of my life, I didn't feel like life was here to guide and support me.
Let's be clear. If you have 35 years of conditioning in one way, it's not going to be an overnight or even a 5-year thing to fully recondition in another way. It's like, we've got to put in the practice. We've got to put in the discipline. We've got to surround ourselves with people that echo those things, with podcasts, with watching things, reading things that sort of, we have to brainwash ourselves. And that's what
totally brainwash ourselves.
Yeah. Because people don't realize how much we've been brainwashed to begin with. And I used to think that was just me having been raised in a cult, but I realized that everyone has some kind of, brainwashing as far as how they should respond or how they should react. So so you put the work in to get some of those affirmations, but you're recognizing that, there's ones that you've still got to maybe do the work to embed it. Yeah,
absolutely. So I am very conscious to respond to life now, though, not react. So this morning before we started this interview, it was one of those mornings I woke up, I've just had a foot operation.
Which is why I've caught you, by the way, because you're stuck in your house. Otherwise, I can't get you.
I'm not allowed to drive. So, I woke up, my foot was really hurting this morning. And then I realized, I've got my period. I was in terrible, I had cramps. I feel terrible. And then I got out of bed and I was all crooked and I put my back out a little bit because I slept strange because I've got a bit of a cough right now. And then my son came into me crying. He was unwell.
Yeah.
I was on the phone to the doctor. It was just this little catalogue of this. It just happened to be one of those mornings where it was just doof, 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 a whole bunch of things. And my son was in pain. I was in pain. And I got a busy day and I was having to reschedule. But while I was doing it, I really had this moment of thinking, gosh, it doesn't seem that long ago that this could have happened and I'd have been in a tailspin. I'd have been totally poor me. Everything's so shit. Why me? I can't cope. You know, like just total victim. And I would have been reactive. So I probably would have been quite cross.
Yeah.
I'd felt this sort of anger bubbling up because it would have felt that yet again I'm unsupported, yet again everything's going wrong.
Right.
And
it
this
just reinforces your belief system. Yeah.
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 Except it's just life. And some days it just isn't all unicorns and rainbows, right? And when I realized that I felt fine about it all, like, yeah, there's a bit of pain and discomfort. And there's some juggling required. But hey, the world's not going to end. And actually, fundamentally, I'm here. I got this. I got me. I'm okay. My son's okay.
And you're
I could respond. And that's huge.
Well, it is. And you're showing up to your purpose because you didn't cancel. A victim mentality might have canceled this conversation. You thought, hey, I'm a little bit more vulnerable than I would like. But hey, Petra's probably going to like that. But ultimately, you're comfortable with your message and you know that this is the difference. You know that you don't have to be the perfect goody two-shoes in order to deserve or earn your place in the world. Actually, what we connect on is an authentic, real conversation, and you've been able to do that today.
Thank you, and thank you. And that's it. I mean, look, I've bundled my hair on top of my head because I didn't have time this morning to do my hair. But once upon a time, I'd have, the perfectionist in me would have, that wouldn't have been okay.
Yeah,
now,
exactly.
What done is better than perfect. Showing up.
Well, and this is a whole other podcast, but building a business is about taking action, not waiting for perfection, right? If every course or every client or everything, speaking gig or anything you've ever done, if you were going, okay, I must memorize it to perfection, or, you would lose the connection to that inner voice thing that you realize is just about being present and being connected in that moment, right?
Totally. Yeah, I mean, that's the key to all of this, is being connected to that inner voice and just knowing fundamentally you're okay.
Absolutely. We could talk all day. I know we're going to do some podcasting again, and we've talked collaboration, which is really exciting to me. If people want to connect with the School of Self-Love or find your book, where's the best place to find you?
Well, the School of Self-Love is, the web address is theschoolofself.love. I love the .love. I was so excited when we found that. The book is on that site. It's also on Amazon.
Amazing.
And I'm on Instagram.
You're everywhere. Yeah, we'll add all of that into the show notes. For now, Katie, thank you so much for your time, your vulnerability, not canceling. I appreciate it.
Oh, I would never. It's too much fun.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't people please and not cancel if I needed to.
Well done. Well said. Yeah, you should cancel if you need to.
Thank you for having me. I love talking to you. It's awesome.
Speak to you soon. Thank you.